Are you investing in a partner or just funding someone's lifestyle?
Mm.
Today on the 40/50 Social Club, we're talking about choose them wisely. Is she worth the financial investment? Let's see what we can say here. We have 3 points that we want to capture, but we're going to go into detail on a lot of things. We want to talk about that audition wallet trap, and we'll tell you what that's about. Real ROI beyond looks and vibes, because I want y'all to know is definitely more than that. And a grown man's framework for financial investment, something that us as men, not only in our 40 and 50s, but just us as men, have to be ready and able to understand and learn. But right now, I want to go ahead and roll this for you all to see so that you can understand exactly where we're coming from.
If I was with a man that's fully in his alpha energy, in his masculine energy, a good partner, he's there for me, he protects me, he does a lot of things, but financially he cannot completely do the job, then I don't mind. Then I don't mind going 50-50 or helping my man, because I love him.
It's a partnership, right? Yeah.
But imagine he's not understanding, not caring, not loving, not there, not supportive.
But wants your money.
He's narcissistic. And on top of all that, you have to pay for that shit.
Yeah.
If you have qualities that can cover up what you can bring to the table, then I'm more than happy to bring the rest of it to the table. I'm happy to share the table with you. But to have nothing and to show up like with nothing as a person, no love, no care, no support, no understanding, and then on top of all that, I gotta pay for you, princess? Get your ass out of here.
Exactly.
No.
All right, so we heard a lot of what that young lady had to say, and I thought that was really good. And she's talking essentially about that ROI, that return on investment, and how the money for her was saying that it matters a lot less when you're with a partner who's fulfilling all the rest of your needs in that way. So regarding that ROI, I'll just toss this into here. Before we even start talking money in a relationship, we first need to determine before or maybe really, really early on in the relationship, is exactly as we possibly can what it is that you want from the relationship. And then at that point, you then need to determine if the person that you're dating is capable and willing to provide those particular wants and needs for you. I'd also say when you get into your 40s and 50s, which is the dynamic there we're talking about at this stage in life, we all understand that every single dollar has a job. So, dudes, when you're thinking about it, is she going to be part of that plan, or is she actually a distraction from it? You got to think about the opportunity cost. You got to think about what it means to invest in someone versus having someone who's consuming all the things that you're investing. And then you obviously have to have some long-term thinking with that.
You know, it's significant that you say that, because when I think about just some of the facts around some of this, it could be staggering. Like, men significantly outspend women on dates. We know this. You know, midlife men often feel judged on what they spend. And we talked about this a little bit before we even got on here about, sometimes the guys that look like us that are our age, we got a little bit more money. You know what I'm saying? And we can, on our dates, it looks probably a little bit more progressive because we had that. But Jay, I want to ask you, how do you think social media and soft life culture has raised the bar on these first dates?
Man, that's a loaded question. I think social media has really ruined dating from a lot of perspectives, in my opinion, because we're always seeing something that's not real, believing it to be real. It's like social media has taught us fear of false evidence appearing real. And I really do believe that social media has struck fear into a lot of men when it comes to dating, because men believe that this is what we have to do to impress a woman or to get a high value quality woman. We have to exhaust our value and give it up to get something that's valuable to us. Don't get me wrong, I believe that there's some balance that has to come with that. It should be an equal thing. But for me, social media has really crippled how men look at dating, because we just have this false reality. And so we're always chasing something that's not real. And it's not even just how we value money and what we believe we have to do to get the woman. But once we get them, we start to realize that they're not real either. The things that we see on social media, that woman that we believe we want, is not real either. By the time you get to that person, you start to recognize after you spend all this money well, this ain't the person you signed up for or thought you were getting.
Mm.
So that's the social media piece from my perspective. And you also talked about
Yeah.
soft life. I think soft life, man, that's a big word. Those are two big words when you put them together. And I think people tend to believe that, okay, soft life means somebody's going to take care of me. And so, and then it's like, well, yeah, that's cool if you can do that. But I think right now, it's not always going to be the man that's going to be taking care of the woman. Women are so
Mm.
much further along in terms of education, career. You got to think about these things. Soft life might be the man making sure that the woman that is providing has a soft life so she can keep moving in a direction that's helping you all move forward. So I think when you
Mm.
think about soft life, it's not just I'm taking care of a woman. Maybe the man is actually taking care of a woman in a different way because she is the one providing. And so I think, we got to think about how we define things and not just base our definition on what we believe somebody else is telling us it should be. I'm going to stop there.
There's definitely an emotional toll that comes with all of this that you're saying, Jay.
Yeah.
But CJ, I want to really understand, like, that emotional toll that Jay was talking about when you're only as valuable as your credit card limit. That's something that we see and we hear.
Yeah.
Just talk about that a little bit because I
Yeah.
know that is
Yeah.
a feeling.
Yeah, yeah. And you think about where that comes from. Again, I think you're talking about the social media piece of that, but we're also talking about gender stereotypes that have existed from time immemorial, right? Like it's just been there, and men
Mhm.
always feel like they need to be that provider. You intensify that by the social media culture and all of that. And suddenly you got dudes that are thinking that way. So that emotional toll that you're talking about, it's definitely real. Like just in talking to cats who are going through it, it's real. I think brothers absolutely feel it. But there's also got to be that realization that if you're caught in that mental space, understand what that
Mhm.
means. It means that you're grounding your emotional health in something that's artificial. We're talking about money right now. Like that's something that
Mm.
that can absolutely bring some creature comforts, but at the same time, it also lacks true substance.
I want to pivot a little
Mm.
bit because I feel like this is a good time to do that, okay? And I want to pivot a little bit because I want to talk a little bit now from the married space because both of you
Mm,
gentlemen are married. I remember when I was married and I looked at this fact because this is a real fact. Married black men in healthy partnerships often see higher net worths
mm,
versus staying single in unstable relationships. So
mm,
when I think about that and
Yeah.
what we were just talking about, there's a difference between building together and sponsoring her lifestyle. And I
mm,
really would like to know, from both of you, there is an opportunity cost here. Money goes into dates, versus the whole situation of paying off debt or investing or kids or businesses and things of that nature. I want you both to talk about that. Can you give me a difference between like building together or sponsoring a lifestyle and that opportunity cost, that whole situation of money going to dates versus debt and
yeah.
paying things off? What do you all think about that? CJ, what do you think about that first? And then I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
Well, actually, here,
Yep.
let's flip that around. I want to let Jay go for that because, again, you're talking to somebody here who's been married for a long time. So I
I
can
Yeah.
I
hear
can
you.
give
I
that
hear
Yeah.
you.
perspective for sure. But I'm interested. I'm interested to see what he would say because my experience, and maybe I'll lead it in with that. My experience with this was so different. When Janine and I got together, neither one of us had a pot to piss in. You know what I mean? So we were
Mm,
building literally
mm.
from the ground up versus cats that I know who are doing this now in their 40s. They're doing it in their 50s. They already have assets in tow that they're bringing into this. And so I think their calculus on what it was going to take in order for this relationship to grow was very different. So I'd rather hear from Jay because his experience speaks a lot more to it, I think.
Yeah. I think for me, being the exact opposite when it comes to CJ in terms of, I got married 6 months ago. So, my
Right.
whole experience with marriage is still very new. But I also believe that prior to that, I've experienced being able to, six figures and all that and have all these opportunities that have afforded me a lifestyle that has been amazing. And
Mm,
then I feel like God has gotten involved and stripped those things away from me to learn how to be a partner
Mm,
mm,
financially.
mm, mm,
mm,
mm,
I really do believe that. And I believe he's put me in a space where he's like, I'm gonna strip you down so that you all are yoked and dependent on each other. to afford the luxuries and the lifestyles that you're used to. And man, that has been very hard for me. I've been learning that over the last few years before we got married. Like, okay, this is not a me thing, this is a we thing. And how do we get on the same page in terms of our dreams and goals? And we're still working through getting to a place financially where we're on the same page and we're heading in the same direction. And I feel like for a significant portion of our dating life, I was like, yeah, I gotta be the one that's doing all these things because that's how I was raised. But now I'm recognizing like, well, that doesn't necessarily bring wealth. I think wealth is to be shared. And it doesn't just constitute financial. I think, as we talked about in prior episodes, I think wealth is a holistic thing. So when you can reach that place with your partner where you all are looking at it like we're going to build our wealth together, I think it just means so much
Mm-hmm.
more. And everything that I've seen and read with relationships that have thrived, not strived, but thrived, have been ones that have built financial wealth together. They've built wealth together. And that just really impacts health. It impacts spirituality. It impacts the financial bank account. So, and it impacts the family and legacy and all those things where it's not just dependent on one person. So those are my thoughts when it comes to wealth
You
building
know,
and where I am right now.
I hear you, Jay. I hear you. I want to go back to something you just said, though. And CJ, maybe you can help me out here, though. But Jay, you talked about stress. You talked about health here. You talked about
Hmm.
that. And stress can find itself in many different ways, but stressing about money is a real deal. I don't know about
Sure.
anybody else, but I remember some days where I definitely, when I was married and trying to make sure that I
Hmm.
could provide for my wife at that point in time, and remembering when I lost my job, and then like 3 weeks
Yeah.
later, she lost her job, and trying to just be
Yeah.
out there trying to figure something out. The amount of
Yeah.
sleep that I did not have, my blood pressure started running higher. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't really focus
Hmm.
at work. It's just a lot, a lot, a lot. You're not
Hmm.
just paying in these dollars. Your body,
Yeah.
that energy, that time, that mental
Yeah.
bandwidth is something that
Yeah.
is taking a toll on you at this point. So CJ, I just want to ask you about that because you too, married, understanding kind of where you are here with your wife. Y'all have been together for a long time. How have you seen the shift in your overall health too
Mm.
when it comes down to how this now not being in the dating scene, but understanding what you all are building? Just speak a little bit about, that transition there.
Yeah, well, there are a couple of points that come up with it too. One of them you just talked about time, and I think once we get to this point in our lives, it's not like when we were in our 20s where you couldn't even see the finish line. The idea of there even being a fourth quarter didn't make sense because you weren't even close to being at the end of the first half, you know? Once you get into this, like you get into your 40s and 50s, if you're lucky, you've lived half your life. Like if you're lucky, you live half. So then you move into that second half and you
Yeah.
start thinking about it differently. The idea of time becomes so much more precious than it was at some other point. And to me, I would even say
Yeah.
in relationships,
Yeah.
that actually becomes a much bigger investment consideration. So I would say to folks, especially those who are dating right now, to some degree, you need to protect your time with at least as much vigor and conviction as you do protecting your wallet. Okay. Once that's done, you get into this
Mm.
relationship. Johnny would tell you when I think about the things that have caused our relationship the most stress, it probably is money. But again, we got together when we were much younger. We had conversations about it,
Mhm.
but we didn't really understand what it was going to mean to be controlling our own money in that way. And so it took some time to kind of evolve to a point where we felt like we're
Hmm.
really building this kind of thing together. I would say when I think about what a healthy marriage is something, or a healthy relationship, but especially marriage because you're bringing that money together. A healthy marriage is one where you are multiplying your wealth. A healthy
Hmm.
marriage is one
Hmm.
where you're actually multiplying your wealth. The opposite of that, when you think about toxic relationships, because you were talking about stress, that's the
Yeah.
complete opposite, and that's what happens there, right? So if you're trying to see which one is yours, are you in a healthy one or you're one that's more toxic, think about the amount of stress that winds up happening there. And to me, when you start having those return on investment thoughts about who you're going to
Hmm.
be with, that needs to be a part of the equation that you're bringing together. And then Jay, both of you all were just talking about this, and I guess I was too. The idea of it's dangerous when you get misaligned with your partner. Okay. And when it comes to money, and that also to me can
Yeah.
wind up signaling something greater. Like if you're misaligned when it comes to that, that probably is an indication of something deeper that's along with some misalignment as well. So when you start to see things that are a little bit more surface level, even if they feel like they're a lot of stress comes with it, it's still kind of surface level compared to the thing at the very core. I think you got to get at that core. You sense this misalignment. What is it telling you in a much deeper perspective, from a much deeper perspective?
Yeah,
That's good.
interesting. And it's interesting that you say that like that. That's a really good perspective. And I'm grateful that you all were able to shine some light on that from just a marriage point of view. But I want to step back now because our conversation still is about am I choosing her? Am I investing? Am I putting my time into her? What does that really mean? And I really want to go to this point now. I want to kind of talk about some of the things that we talk about in the group chat sometimes, or men like us talk about in that group chat. And I'm going to ask this question. Are we raising women to see men as experiences and not partners?
Man, that's loaded.
Are are we as men creating the entitlement by leading with money? Two questions I think we should take just a moment and discuss. Jay, are we raising women to see men as experiences and not partners?
And I think it's all about what experience the mamas then went through, what
Mm,
they carry on and share with their children. I feel like that question is so loaded, but I
Mm,
really believe that it's individual to individual. I will say that with social media, with what the things that are out here on any type of media or platform, they're teaching us to increase body count. What I mean by
mm,
that is it's all about experiences, and you keep
mm,
building body count until you reach that person that's a partner. But I think that,
mm,
the way that we're teaching our women and our men, it's both, right? We're teaching men
mm,
that they got to go get the bag and not really develop the skills that are those softer skills to afford a soft life. Soft life
mm,
also
mm,
means
mm,
you having emotional IQ, you having the social skills that you can put toxic masculinity down and remove ego and pride so that you could talk and learn how to
mm,
love. Like, we're not taught those things. So I think we're already teaching our men, like growing up as men, we're taught,
mm,
body
mm,
count need to be high. That's how you build ego and
mm,
machismo, like,
mm,
and then on the flip
yeah.
side, now I think women are acting like men, like, okay, well, if he
mm,
got to
mm,
focus on body count, I'm going to focus on bank account. I'm going to focus on how many bags
mm,
I can get
Mm,
because at the end
mm,
of the day, he just
mm.
focusing on how many bodies he can get. So it's like it's this weird
mm.
dynamic that I think we're in right now that makes it very difficult to answer that question because I still do
Yeah.
believe there's a smaller population of mothers and fathers out there really teaching their children, hey, it's about partnership. It's about
Mm,
Mhm,
mm,
mhm.
legacy. It's about wealth. It's about health
mm.
versus these other pieces that are surrounding the media so heavy. That's just my take.
Yeah.
Chris, there is a sense of
Oof.
obligation in some ways that comes with some of this, right?
Mm.
Do you feel like sometimes that black men feel like they need to rescue women from the struggle?
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. I mean, again, I think I've heard that from some people. It hasn't been my experience necessarily, but I've definitely heard that from some people where they feel that. And what's interesting about it to me, I think it's we as men, we want to feel powerful. We want to feel wanted. And so too often, in order to do that in society that we live in, we equate that with spending money. We equate that with rescuing someone. We equate that with all those traps
yeah.
that come along with it. So it's double sided here. It's like going back to the question, are we raising women to look for the experiences and not the partnership? The answer to that is
Mhm.
yes, but it goes both ways though. It's not that we are solely responsible for it. I think both are doing that and it just comes from insecurity in both senses. So if you got two people who are insecure in whatever way, the way they come together is likely going to be exactly what we're talking about. you got to have at least one of those with substance who can hopefully bring the other one along, and hopefully you wind up with two with substance. But to me, that's where my mind is right now. The answer, are we doing this? Are we trying to save people and do this and that? The answer to that is yes, and there are lots of reasons for it. But to me, it kind of goes into a place that gets into an area that could wind up becoming toxic.
And I can't help but just chime in on one more thing before you go. But I think also too, experiences people can hide. You can hide by selling experiences or creating experiences, and that's all you got. But then when life throws you curveballs and you can't afford to bring those experiences, then what you got? Nothing.
Right. That's that lack of
You know,
substance.
so
That's the lack of substance
yeah, I
right
think,
there.
I think so. It creates this thing where if you got a woman or a human that's only living for experiences, when life be life, and what you got, you know, that's something that you got to think about too.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a clip that I want us to take a look at right now, and it's an interesting clip. But we're talking about the prices of dates. Take a look at this.
He talking about, where am I taking you, and are we going to this 5-star spot? The bill not 500. I don't want to go. They favorite shit to say. If you broke, just say that. Imagine asking me for some cheese, and then I tell you no, and you talking to me talking about something. Oh, if you can't afford $200 for my nails, just say that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Now, this guy just talked about this $500 date, and he just talked about kind of the dynamic with that. I want to take a moment and just think about the framework here. And I want to take this point for us to discuss kind of like financially, like a dating order or strategy or something of a tiered approach. Now, let me just say, maybe there is stages to this. Maybe stage one looks like 0 to 3 dates is a little bit more time versus money, right? Maybe stage two is like we dating kind of nice, right? I'm seeing you. I'm seeing you. We going out. I'm taking you, and we having some shared experience, but we not
The
really
500.
spending a ton of money yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not spending luxury lavish on you as of yet. But then when I think about like the next stage, when I'm like really committed, maybe at that point in time, I'm making these bigger financial moves. I'm tracking myself, but I'm making these bigger financial moves. And I think that might be a good approach. What do you all think to that? How do you think about that?
Man, for me, this whole 500 conversation is completely out of control.
Out of control.
It's way out of control. And I think, thank God, I have a partner that we truly like. If it's 500, we going somewhere. We gonna take a trip somewhere. I think in the 5 years we've been together, we may have had one or two 500 dates or something like that. And if we did, we were probably abroad somewhere where we was just like, let's ball out. Let's get all the experience we gonna get out of this experience. But we not sitting here like, yeah, we gonna spend 500. And then I don't think I've ever really been the 500 on the first day. Come on, man. I'm not doing that. I guess also too, because I was dating serially. 500 times 500, it's only so much bread that a person can have or should have that goes into the dating bucket, right? So I think if that's the expectation, then that's not the person you need to be focused on, in my opinion. I mean, again, you could be a super high value human and you like, hey, 500 is nothing. But at the same time, I don't know.
Do you all think that even at our age, that it's, there is pressure with being able to provide at that level? We talked about Instagram. We talked about, in some ways, some of the fantasies that come around Instagram, right? And I feel like these individuals are probably younger than us, but from even some of our past podcasts, we talk about dating and we talk about dating younger women. I want to know, would this be a fair expectation? To think about from a perspective of if you're dating someone younger, or are there still boundaries that need to be put in place? Is there still kind of like a checklist that needs to be put in place here? Does she still have to bring you peace at that age, or does it matter? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
what do you guys think? Because for me, I feel like there's still boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I
again,
mean,
I'm
for
hearing y'all
me,
talking about
go ahead. You
$500
go ahead,
dates.
CJ.
No, 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 no. I have no expertise in this. Y'all talking about these $500 dates with anybody, let alone women younger than y'all. Like, that's a real pressure. And again, to me, as I hear it, and I'd love to get y'all's responses to it, but when I hear it, I think back to the non-financial return on investment piece of this, right? Like, if I'm thinking about
Yeah.
being in this relationship, is it somebody who I feel like increases my capacity versus the opposite?
Mm,
Do I feel like when I'm
mm.
with this person, I make better and clearer decisions when I'm around her? Or do I find myself like doing some things in some ways that ultimately are going to get me in trouble? And I know it going in, but I just can't help myself in the moment. And then also, I think from a relationship perspective, do I feel sharper in this relationship or do I feel drained? Because the energy is
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's another piece of that. So again, for me, I'm thinking that less financial ROI that goes into it
Mhm.
as you think about that and then thrust that paradigm on top of thinking about this person you're going to date and potentially spending all that cheese on a date on a first date because that's what the expectation is. I don't even know how you deal with that.
Yeah.
That's a
So,
non-starter.
s- so say that you're dating. So say that you're dating. Say that now you have decided that you are going to invest in this young lady. Okay. So when do you start talking about finances? Right? When do you have that conversation around like just where you are? And what you can do,
Mm,
because maybe you're happy with investing in each other, but not trying to fund a fantasy. And
mm,
you want her to understand in some ways that, but you want it to be a situation where you both are able to say these things respectfully to each other. What do you all think about that?
Yeah, you start talking about it when she start talking about 500, you know? I mean,
yeah.
that's the entry
Yeah,
point.
that's real.
That's the beginning of the conversation. Okay, boo boo. Since you on 500, let's start talking about what 500 means for me because my
Mm,
return on and my investment needs to match your expectation. If we going to go there, let's go there. You know what I mean? But I think it should be something that comes from a place. I mean, I'm not the right person to ask this question because I feel like there's too many
Yes, you
people
are.
out here taking
yeah.
advantage of people. So I'm really sensitive
Mm,
to people taking advantage of people because I've been taken advantage of when I was dating and it made me
mm,
feel horrible. And I was like, I would never want to do that to somebody.
mm,
So
yeah.
I
Mhm.
felt like if I felt like this was somebody that's going to be somebody that I go on a multiple dates with, and I think that they're a high value person in my life, we gonna talk about it maybe on date 2 or 3. Like, and it ain't gotta be
Mm,
nothing too offensive. It just, hey, what are your views on this? How do you feel
yeah.
about this? Do you feel it's cool to have reciprocity financially in dating, or is it one
Mm,
sided?
Mhm.
I want to know these things
Mhm.
early
Mhm.
because that's going to dictate if we go on date 4 or 5, or if I'm gonna
mm,
consider you coming over to my house and I'm gonna cook for you. Like for me, cooking for you
Mhm.
is more valuable than me taking you out on a date. So
mm,
I'm thinking about all those things and I'm asking some of those questions quite early.
mm. Wow.
Man, that is something to think about. And here's why I say that. Because where you are is where a lot of us at our 40s and 50s are and have been. And that is in situations where we felt taken advantage of. I know
Mm,
even me myself,
Yeah.
I have been through a couple of situations where I felt taken advantage of.
mm,
And probably it is also my fault. I can't even say that it was just her fault because I had the opportunity to stop. I had the
mm,
opportunity to say no. I had the opportunity to be like, I don't want to contribute or help you anymore. And I didn't
mm,
do that. I continued. And that continue meant not hundreds of dollars, but probably by the end of it, thousands of dollars, right?
wow.
Thousands of dollars to show for really nothing. And what I mean by that is the return on investment that I only wanted was some quality time, being
Mm,
able to kind of see that person and, just being able to spend a little bit more in-person time with that person, and it never, ever happened. Like, ever happened. So now I'm looking at that from a standpoint of not only what I was foolish because I continued to contribute to that family, that person, what they were doing, that what they were telling me, do I really know if it was true or not? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is that there were thousands of dollars given to it for what? Conversation and for what else, you know? So
Yeah.
I totally understand what you're saying here, Jay. I do want to take a
Yeah.
moment before we get out of here, y'all. I want to play this last clip for you all to see and hear because I think it also brings into consideration these points that we're making.
Love is beautiful, but it's not meant to feel heavy all the time. If the relationship feels like a constant burden, you don't have a partner. You have a project. Is your partner a benefit or a burden? I'm not asking if you love them. I'm asking what life feels like with them. Do they lighten your load or add to it? Do they bring peace or constant pressure? A relationship isn't supposed to feel like emotional babysitting. It's not supposed to feel like dragging someone into growth. It's not supposed to feel like you're raising an adult. Are they contributing or consuming? A partner should multiply your peace, not multiply your stress. Should support your goals, not compete with them. You should feel stronger with them, not drained because of them. And if you feel relieved when they're not around, that's not chemistry, that's clarity.
For you all that are watching us right now, what is the most that you've ever spent on a woman you knew wasn't long term? I want y'all to answer that question.
Mhm.
And if this hits you, I want you to continue to watch our episodes, not only just around vulnerability and about money, but just around these dynamics of dating. I know it's not really a series that we're putting together here, but it's a really good opportunity for you all to comment even below right now on what you want us to talk about next in these series of like vulnerability and these series that more hit on these small points of relationship building. On behalf of the 4050 Social Club, fellas, I want to thank y'all for coming out tonight. I know we're going to have a lot more comments about this episode, but this was a really good one for us tonight.
Yeah, it was. It was. And I can't help but think about, we got to come back to this one because it was one thing that was just said in the B-roll we looked at. Is your person a project or a partner? And we got to give that some more air. I can't just let us not talk about that on a future episode. Is your person a project or a partner? Because I think that's got some wings on it.
Amen.
Yeah. All right, y'all. We gonna catch y'all on the next one. 4050 over and out. Peace.
Later.